Welcome back, amazing people, for another glorious episode of Age of Awæcnian. Soulful Stories Unveiled. And that Fleece said it's been our third time today, and it's been really beautiful to just connect with amazing humans and leaders. And I always just get so excited. And how are you feeling, Flea, about our third guest that we've just chatted to and met backstage?
Oh, this is amazing because I can just see the way the flow of the stories interacts. So like this morning, we started out talking with Samantha J about all of that beautiful shadow work and how we look for that prosperity in everything, and then diving in with Ariel into, the dimensional work and all of this, cool new way of teaching and learning and facilitating growth. And I can just see that this next guest that we have on is going to be much of the same, but that depth of character and, like us, a storyteller at heart. So, this flow and this ease that we get when we come together is creating this balance. And that was the first card that came out in this draw. So it's like really looking at how we temper ourselves in ways of intentional communication.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And, when I first met our next guest, Brett, he had this amazing suit on. I met him at the Beam Awards down the Gold Coast. And that's where we won our first award for silver for New Emerging Business of the Year, which was very exciting for us. And I remember Brett, he was just like walking around, he had this amazing like red suit on. And he went around to everybody and just like shook everybody's hands and like said hello, I'm Brett, and like connected and like felt really genuine. And not many people do that. And I always remember people who make the effort to connect with others. And Brett, I only met him on this night, but what a phenomenal soul already. And he is the man of the hour, and I love the Superman vibes that he exudes. And he won the Gold Award for Man of the Year, a Silver Award for Coach of the Year at the Beam Awards Australia for Small Businesses, and is just an amazing networker and connector. And I love already just in that little brief connection that we've had either by text or even just chatting, like how beautifully aligned our connections are. So, Brett, welcome. How are you feeling today?
I am feeling amazing, and I'm really excited to chat with you, especially because you love to free flow, and that was music to my ears. Because I was thinking, I better have something prepared. I better know what you want to hear. And as I said, there's no end to the amount of information that I could give you. But I'm also mindful that anyone that's watching or listening, especially if they've watched 3 in a row, they might be like, oh my gosh, I need to get my pen and paper and take notes. And I would say that's a good idea. But yeah, really grateful that you thought, hey, Brett might not necessarily be a phoenix rising, although, side note, before my wife and I split up, I actually wanted to call my son Phoenix. There you go. Side note. However, I have had, one of the most incredible metamorphoses. Is that the word? Metamorphosis into my version of this guy, which Marie, you got to see the night. I got to turn into Superman, And for people who don't know me, like probably a lot of your watchers, listeners, um, you might think, oh, is that a gimmick? I can promise you it is not a gimmick. And, uh, and, you know, it's something. And in fact, I have a TED talk which talks into the journey of Superman and me. Although it's not called that, it's called How to Unleash Your Inner Superhero. Although someone did tell me that they didn't learn how to unleash their own inner superhero from that TED talk. So I need to do another one to
Oh,
fix that up.
it's so
But
powerful.
yeah, so the journey has been from the age of 1 to the age of 43, let's say 44, until I really started to unveil, you know, like literally and figuratively, actually become my version of Superman.
Mm.
And, you know, and of course, as people are listening, watching, probably going, well, hang on, Superman's not real. Like, are you still a kid? Have you grown up? The answer to that
Mm.
is in part yes and in part no.
Mm.
Um, but Superman, the character, you know, what does, and this is why, you know, at the point where I realized, oh my gosh, you know, I actually have gone through a metamorphosis. I am changing out of that mild mannered Clark Kent, that people pleaser mentality, and becoming, you know, someone who actually, what does Superman stand for? If you don't know, he stands for truth and justice. And if you're in America, you'll be saying, yeah, and the American way. Well, okay, I'm in Australia. So no, just truth and justice. And so, you know, that is something that I absolutely uphold these days. And, you know, as you said about recognizing that I was saying, you know, congratulations or hello to a range of people, I don't do it for any other purpose than I genuinely want to get to know people. You know, and I think that is the difference to the version of person I am today to the person I was before. Before it was about how can I make sure that people like me? And what do I need to say to make sure that they like me? And what do I need to not say so that they don't like me?
Mm.
Hang on, don't not like me. So, you know, the process of going through change, and you've had incredible guests on before me. One of them I know, Samantha, and, you know, going through that understanding of what actually does hold us back, you know. And so I live my passion, and my passion is the mind, and hence why I'm called a mindset coach. And I like to call myself a metaphysical mindset coach versus just your plain old mindset coach. Not that it's plain old, it's really important. And so, you know, metaphysics, I was sort of getting into before we went online, sort of getting into the idea about the way I live life is actually in, you know, kind of a balance between the spiritual, which I love. And I grew up in a spiritual household. My mother, my grandmother, my two aunties didn't have any male influence. There's another part to the story that we might get to if you want to know about it. But they helped me to build a really beautiful spiritual foundation from the age of 14 to 17. And, you know, at the other part of the spectrum, I remember at 18, my mum saying to me, I've noticed you are not, you know, going to your meditation groups, and you're not doing this and that in the spiritual realm. What's happened? And I said, well, nothing's happened. It's just that, you know, I've realized that I need to live in the real world. Now, when I said that at 18, of course, my my view on the real world is very different to what it was when I was 18. But it was it was the right choice to make the decision to live in this 3D physical existence, and, you know, have experiences, because that's how, you know, when we get to a certain point where, like I didn't, like I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching what you guys deliver, it's, you get to that point where you go, there's something missing.
Mm.
There's something missing. And that was what it was for me.
Yeah. It's really refreshing,
So,
yeah, to hear like a very conscious and grounded individual like yourself in the masculine voice. We always have amazing feminine women coming on and beautiful men that come on, but it's really I suppose hard to find I suppose, more men that are in this realm of understanding the metaphysical, the spiritual, and also like this power of the inner child that you've embraced. And also the sense of responsibility that comes with evolutionary growth. And I know Flea had the cards that popped up before. What were those cards, Flea? Have I lost you? Sometimes it freezes. I think it was like the truth and justice,
Triple
the
J.
truth and justice card that she pulled up.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
and we've lost Flea. Sometimes that happens. But yeah, that piece when you were talking about, Superman. What card did you pull up, Flea? I was just talking about. I thought it was the truth and justice card.
Yeah, so the justice card was, so in this particular deck, which is kind of unusual, the balance card in standard tarot is the justice card,
Yeah.
and the other one, which was patience, which for us, that patience is that trust in the unknown, and I guess the divine flow that we know that we need to take, which is actually the balance card in tarot. So like the double balance within this reading was kind of unusual, but when you were talking about that, the truth or the justice, like that's literally those two cards. It's, be open to that, the patience, I guess, for things to unfold naturally, rather than trying to rush with envy, greed, and hate and all of those type of things. It's that patience that is needed to just allow things to unfold in the right way, because it always kind of does anyway, and that's the justice that happens, like things unfold in the right way.
I couldn't agree more. Do you go by Flea, do you, versus Felicia?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And the reason I asked that question, I thought, oh, it might be a special nickname that only one person gets to use. So I better check.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And when I finally, because for 4 years after a big breakdown moment that we might talk about, I finally had a proper breakthrough 4 years later. And when I started to go through this training as a student or a client of a really great coach, what occurred was I recognized the number one, non-productive behavior that I was emitting was, I was going to say untruth, yeah, as dishonesty. I was not being truthful, and not always. It wasn't that I was a, compulsive liar, but as I said before about the people-pleasing mentality, I was, trying to stay safe
Mm-hmm.
because, as you'd both know, talking about, childhood trauma or even just childhood programming, there or abandonment, we might say, because my dad remarried, had other kids, and I got left behind. Now, without going on a tangent, because I could, he did the best thing. Like he did the best thing because he wouldn't have been a great male role model for me anyway. So he actually did the best thing because when I had my big breakdown moment, my ex-wife, my now ex-wife, was pregnant at the time. And, it was one of those pivotal moments of decision or of choice where after I'd had my first adult cry, which is going to sound, it's going to sound crazy to some people, or if you, consider that many men just don't allow emotion to come out. But I'd held on to all of that emotion for at that time 39 years. I was turning 40 that year. So for, I can't remember the actual last time, but I remember I was a child when I cried. And so hadn't actually cried until 39. And as the tears are coming out, because I'd actually, just to put some context to this, when I got this really, this news about this big debt that I'd accrued, wasn't done on purpose, but certainly was definitely my fault. And, I knew in that moment that my wife, it was just going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, especially that she's, now finally pregnant. We'd tried to get pregnant for quite some time. And so I knew in that moment that, it was over. And I considered, because I thought about, how did I make so many stupid decisions along the way? And then I thought, you know what? This child doesn't deserve to have a father as stupid as me. These are my thoughts. And so
Mm.
I seriously considered how I was going to take my life for a moment, thankfully, for a fleeting moment, because the one thing that has always been a part of my, let's call it personality, but of course that can change, but a part of my DNA has been positive. In fact, my blood type is B positive. So I have positivity flowing through my blood. And so that being positive actually saved my life. And what happened
Mm.
was I started to cry. And as I'm crying, I remember saying to myself, I never want to be in this type of situation again. In fact, I never want to be this type of man again. And all of a sudden, it was like I got hit with a lightning bolt, almost literally.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, when I figure out how to fix my life, I should write a book and help other stupid men figure out how to fix their life as well. They were
Mm.
literally the words that it rings in my ears still to this day. Because I thought, after I'd said it in my head, I thought, hang on a minute, I've never wanted to write a book ever. In fact, if you said, hey, I'm going to make a movie about whatever, I
Mm.
would have thought, oh, yeah, that makes sense because I'd watched so many movies. But reading books was not a specialty of mine. Although I had a lot of books, there are a lot of books on my bookshelf, a lot of self help books. And people who don't read self help books, what do they call that? Shelf help. So a lot of shelf help. and
Mm.
and so I knew that that was a proper download from God, from the universe, and it took me, 4 years of repairing relationships, helping my ex to be a stay-at-home mum for the first 3 years of our son's life, and paying back the debt that I'd accrued in less than a year, whilst opening a brand new gym and becoming a personal trainer. And there's a whole another realm of stories about careers that I've
Mm.
had, but the point is that during that 4 years, I took responsibility, and that led me to the point where I was prepared to figure out, well, what is this missing piece? Why do I keep sabotaging myself every time I get to a certain level of success, which I've had some decent ones over the year? I would find a way to, excuse my language, but fuck it up. So, it was, yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful gift to then cry for the second time at the age of 43. I was getting the time gaps were shortening, and now it's over. All of my fingers are covered now, so don't worry. I've cried numerous times now, so it's good. We're connecting, but yeah. So without me going on, do you want to ask something on what I shared there? Because as I said, I can keep going.
Oh, I was holding this card, and it's like, so it's the temptation or the devil card in tarot. So the devil card
Ah,
meaning ultimate endings. And
yeah,
as you were speaking, like, you heightened a lot of, I guess, awareness that just came before this, and it's that that art is a fleeting moment, and the fact that you used fleeting as your word there, I was like, oh, that ties in with my nickname. And as you said, is it a special name? Well, Felicia Lee Flea is something that I've actually adopted. It used to be used in the negative term, as in the insect. And what I came to
yeah,
realize is the strength in the different spellings. So the using the FLEE, as in to
yep,
flee experiences, actually gives you time to come back and resolve the problem. So this strength in retreat, and that's like that temptation card. It's all around like these addictions that we have, and most people like to jump into that, oh, it's alcoholism, or it's, like, it's the obvious type of drugs addictions and stuff. And yes, that's there, but it's the addiction to self-sabotage as well, like to these
well,
behaviors, to those little things that we set ourselves up knowingly, even if we deny it, um, to continue the same patterns. And that's that cycle ender, that cycle breaker, that I just love how you brought all of that into this new big wow moment of, I had to hate myself that much that I needed to change.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's those little fleeting moments that we
yeah,
we we take for granted. It's like, yes, like in those moments of just, no, I've had enough. we get to make those choices to change. And that's
I
handling our
couldn't
our
agree with you
addictions
more.
there.
Powerful.
Mm.
It's
Hey,
interesting
Flea,
as well. Oh, sorry, I was just going to add
no, go for
before
it.
we shift, but like the piece that you were saying around like the lies that we tell ourselves, even though there's some truths
Mm.
in there. I think back to something that Flea and I spoke about last year, and like the beliefs that we're like, no, I'm doing the right thing to please this person. If we break down the word belief, there's the lie in the middle, the belieth,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what little lies, these little white lies, and this is Flea's words that have just absorbed through me. It's like, well, am I lying to myself, or is this a truth? Is this a knowing? Is this something else? And we get to unpeel the layers,
Mm.
and the difference between that patterning that you were talking about that we're, ingrained in as children, and these belief systems and these constructs that frame, these experiences we have, and being able to then have those breakthrough moments after the breakdowns where we're like, hang on a second,
Mm.
what's the deeper piece and the essence behind that? And we forget
Mm.
on the journey who we are, that we are actually all superhuman and like that divinity and human, and I love this piece that you're bringing
Mm.
through in your own story as well.
Do you know, you're 100% correct. And just before I add to what you're saying, I just want to say that if you think about the actual insect, the flea, like they are actually super insects.
Mm.
They are super insects.
Master's
So
deception.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know.
and, and
I've
and of
adopted
course
both,
people,
and that's the thing. Like
yeah,
if you take a bully and you use what they're trying to create harm with, you can flip it. And that's the thing. Like, yeah,
yeah,
they wanted to call me that, and it's like, okay, well, fine, you're going to call me that. Well, I'm going to own it. And the
yeah,
flea
totally.
is mighty. It gets
Yeah,
to hide in its strength. It actually lives off of the backs of others. Like how like how easy and brilliant is that? Like really, but
yeah,
yeah,
I
all
agree.
levels, and it is just
Yeah.
Felicia Lee. So you take away the name like you would with a dot. It's Flea.
I love it. Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. You know, it is like perspective, changing perspective is such an important, part of the process. But like you're saying about belief or truth, it I think where a lot of people get stuck, and not just in these areas, is they get overwhelmed. When I think about when I go, as we can all do, when you can look back at the history of what's occurred over your time here on Earth and the decisions you've made or the outcomes that have happened, you can realize that at times where you don't take action, or at times where you don't see change, or you don't transform into the version of you that you want to be or you think you want to be, it's because you're overwhelmed. And so with
Mm,
anyone I work with, and it started of course with me, is I always simplify things. So I always like bring it right back, let's scale it right back to what's something really small. So when it comes to, let's say if someone was a people pleaser like me, and I'm sure there's plenty out there, I know there are, how do you change out of the people pleaser mentality? Well, there's two parts to it. Like you said about addiction, there's two parts to it. One part is figuring out what are you potentially holding on to that you haven't forgiven? So that unforgiveness piece, or is there some trauma that could be, trapping you into this place of feeling like you've got to stay safe and, not have people either be angry or, not piss people off or not, or, make sure that people really like you. And so how do you change that process? Well, part of it is the forgiveness part, but the other part of it is, how about if you just start small? Like, okay, you normally you wouldn't tell the truth in this instance. How about you tell a bit of the truth? So for people that
mm,
are changing, I say don't overwhelm yourself with, completely changing. Like when, we go to the gym, you haven't been to the gym for months or years or ever, and you pick up these
mm,
weights, and then you next day you can't even walk, and you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that every day? And it's overwhelming. And so what happens is your subconscious mind starts to want to get you back into safety, like, oh no, don't do that. And it gives you all the excuses. The monkey mind starts to kick in and tells you all the reasons why going to the gym, just as an example, is going to be the worst thing you could possibly do to yourself. And so you go back to eating sausage rolls and sitting on the couch. Maybe not those two things, but yeah, you get the idea. So yeah, there's so much to, the thing I love about my journey is that when I when I finally realized, oh, it's not just like the writing of the book, which is this book, and actually there's a lot more to it. There's a bigger goal to this book, but writing this book, Supercharged Freedom, Your Truth Will Set You Free, and yes, it's a Book Excellence Award winner. I thought that's what the journey was going to be. When I finally had the breakthrough and realized and knew in my heart of hearts that I was no longer going to sabotage myself in moving forward, I thought this book was the journey. No, the book is a major part of the journey, but what I've come to realize is that I now have, and when I think about purpose, I now have a duty. It's now my duty and honor to be able to do the work that I do. Like, I found my absolute passion. Like, I love learning every single day. If I'm not listening to something or reading something that is related to my work, then I feel nauseous. Not really, but I feel bad because I love my work so much. And of course, when you understand, whether it be mindset or anything that really makes positive change that you love, you recognize that it all starts with you. So the more I work on myself, the more it's going to make an impact out there. And so getting to this point where we met Marie, where I was honored with being Man of the Year and the silver for Coach of the Year, those are great and they're beautiful accolades and they add to the credibility of what I do. But the reason I loved it so much, for two reasons. One, I was in a room with a lot of people that I knew, and so it was, heartwarming to know that people who know me and have seen my journey, have seen where I started, can go, wow, isn't it amazing that Brett's got here? But actually the thing about it for me was, the most important thing, and this is what it should be for everyone, is I recognized my growth. These weren't awards that were just given to me for the sake of it. These are awards that I actually deserve. And regardless of what anyone else thinks. In fact, someone had some thoughts on that the following night. But the point is, it gave me an ability, the positive out of it was, gave me an ability to really look into, why do I deserve to have won these awards? And again, it's not about the awards, it's about who I've become. I've become this person that I'm super proud of, but it's not an ego thing. It really isn't. It's about, okay, well, if I can do it, bloody anyone can do it. Because believe you me, if you knew the old version of me, what's that card?
That one's the Lord. So it's the take charge of your own authority. So that's, being your sovereign self. So Awæcnian, the actual term of our business, is the original Latin term for awakening. And the AE symbol, as it's combined there, in its originality, in its symbolic form, means one. So to awaken into the one. And, that's what you were saying. It all starts with the self and coming back to yourself first, because when we can recognize the oneness within ourselves, and that is all of energy, all of source, all of the universe, then we get to be in that authority and we get to lead from that place, which is the Lord. So that, like, that beautiful prosperity and everything else that came with that as well in that reading.
I love it. Last year I was up for the Man of the Year. I was a finalist and I didn't get silver or gold, and it was absolutely fine. Like, it was good. And, the reflection I could have on that was, I definitely was not ready. The version I am in 2024 to the 2023. And don't get me wrong, I was still doing great things. And in fact, I was helping someone to launch a new incredible reality television show all about helping social entrepreneurs to grow and scale their mission to positively impact the world. But I wasn't the version of man that I am today. And so there's been some even more recent upgrades that I've been putting into place that adds to the value of who I am as a leader in being able to help other people to awaken to their superpowers. In fact, I just signed on a Wonder Woman today. And so, and not even a joke like that, literally, that's how she sees herself, as Wonder Woman. So, which is beautiful. And so, you know, it's about any one of us, because, you know, when people say, oh, you know, how did you make the decision to go on this journey and become, you know, this incredible coach? And it's like, I didn't. I really didn't. Not consciously anyway. I didn't make the decision, you know. In fact, there were parts of the journey where I felt like I was kind of pushed into it, you know, like it. And so going back to that point of purpose, and it talks into what you said, Flea, which is when you think about oneness, or you think about, depending on what your views are on oneness, or, you know, that I am all of you and you are me. But coming into this physical, which is what it is. But coming into this in this individualized physicality of who we are, it's important for us to really respect the journey. Like, it is about the journey that we're going on. And so the journey of discovering purpose is one part, but then it's so much more. Like, the idea of what I'm doing hasn't changed. Like, the goal or the mission hasn't necessarily changed. But because I'm changing along the way, as you do, what I'm finding is that the expansion of what I think is possible keeps opening up, you know, and certain people show up into my environment, and things that I didn't think I was going to do start to occur. And I think, wow, is that aligned? Yes, it is. Okay, I'll move with that. And so, you know, I've had clients, including myself, where confidence was not strong in the beginning. You know, when I started, you know, people see me now and think, oh, you're very confident, you get up there and speak. But that wasn't always the way. You know, when I first started, I didn't even want to be on camera. Like, can I just talk behind the camera and we can just look at some scenery? Because no one needs to see my face.
Oh,
You know, because I wasn't fully, and of course it's still the journey. I will never become, you know, the full version of me. But the point is, I'm extremely confident in who I am now, and there's still a lot of room. There's still so much more to go, you know. I'm still not where I want to be, but am I happy with where I am? Extremely. You know, the amount of gratitude that I go through every day, and I'm sure it's exactly like, well, maybe not exactly, but very similar to what both of you go through. It's like, this is such a gift. You know, when you hear people saying, oh, life is a struggle, and well, yeah, it is, if you focus on that. And things don't change instantly when you change your conscious thinking. You've got to reprogram the subconscious, or allow superconscious to come in, or, you know, there's other aspects of the mind, as you probably know.
You have to choose it.
Yeah.
Like that. That's the only way to get past those humps. And I read some interesting information, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, that so it takes 7 positive thoughts for every negative for our brain to counter and create balance. So, like, you know, for most people, we're super focused on the negative, and that can become drowning, and it can become impossible to find those positives. Whereas when you make the conscious choice to go, okay, well, what are my 7 things right now? And in that moment, it's like, okay, there's my 7 things. And you can do that anywhere, anytime, any place. And the more that you do that, the more it's like, oh, wow, look at the color of the sky this morning. Or, oh, wow, I had kangaroos just lazing about in the sun. And that gets to be the thing I see, the first thing I open up my blinds. And it's like, wow, like, how amazing can these things be? And
when you
just
look
in the
at
simplicity of doing that, you get
it's
so much
amazing.
more.
And when you look at the brain science, when you're in that deep gratitude and in those moments, there is evidence that says when you're in gratitude, you cannot go into fear. You cannot go into the fear state. And so when you tap into the amygdala, which is where you've got your fight, flight, freeze,
Yep.
practicing that gratitude and that heart rate coherence, there's so much evidence there. And it's so easy. Like you said, like open up the blinds and go, wow, what a beautiful day, you know.
Do you know, here's another important piece to add to what you're saying for your audience, because, when you are in that, let's say, negative spiral, or there's a lot of chaos that's going on in your life, and you're hearing people saying you've got to think positively, you've got to be in gratitude. And I know from experience with certain people that they're like, yeah, sure, it's easy for you. So for those people, I'm sure there's actually probably no one of those watching, but if there is, or if there is anyone just stuck in that for a moment, the thing that I often start with certain clients who, like me, have that mentality that life is happening to them, and they don't have any control over this, and that's not my fault. That's because of this or that person, the blame game. And so the thing that I'll say to them to get them moving, or to get them moving into a more positive state, is to change their environment. So there's so many things we can do in our environment to change. Number one, I'm sure neither of you do this, just like me. Don't watch TV. Don't listen to the news. Don't read newspapers. Find other things, like you're saying, that you can do that enable you to stay in that positive feeling. Because, and actually talking about the TV show that I mentioned, what my friend that's actually created the idea, her name's Kim Serafini. She has a software called Positive Prime. So if anyone wants to look at it, it's positiveprime.com. Now, this software has been proven scientifically by the University of Technology in Sydney to put your brain into a flow state in less than 3 minutes, and it lasts for 6 to 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
Now, what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is that you're focusing on things like gratitude, or like your future reality that you're working towards, or like things that are already here, like your children or your partner or your whatever, maybe animals. So you have this software that is a little bit like a slideshow, but it's way more elaborate, and it's got an algorithm built into it. So you never see the same images in the same order, which is what rewires that neuroplasticity. Is that right? Neuroplasticity of the brain, and it rewires your brain to actually be in joy, in happiness. And the science of happiness, that's why there's degrees you can get in positive psychology, because it is a science. It's not just, yeah, you want to feel good and you want to do a bit of gratitude. No. In fact, I've got a serious, one of my contacts who's also a mentor in the States, like he's worth over $200 million, very astute business person. But actually, when he had the big breakdown himself back in 2008 during the GFC, by the way, his name's David Meltzer, when he rebuilt, he actually recognized, and these are his words, that he'd become an asshole. And he said, I wasn't born an asshole, and my parents didn't bring me up to be an asshole. So if I wasn't before, maybe I can not be again. But he recognized in the work that he was doing and the people he was surrounding himself with, right, the environment, that he'd actually become this version of himself that he was not proud of. And very luckily, his wife didn't leave him. And he had a friendship already formed with the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer. If you don't know who he is, make sure you type that name in, Dr. Wayne Dyer, D-Y-E-R. And Wayne helped him to build this foundation of spirituality and gratitude and love and happiness. And so he's actually David's best mates with Gary Vee. And he jokingly says, Gary Vee and I are very similar, except one of us doesn't swear. and so, and so why I'm mentioning David is that he's someone who's very grounded in the business world and can make like a hell of a lot of money. He was worth $100 million in 2008, lost it all, completely bankrupt, had to actually sell his mother's home, which was his goal as a young person, to buy his mum a home. He had to say, "Mum, sorry, I need the keys back." And then he rebuilt, with this beautiful spiritual undertone that he still has to this day. And so, you know, like attracts like, right? And so I love the idea that, some people, who, might just have this beautiful spiritual life that they have and think that money maybe is not necessarily, the life that they want to lead. You don't need to be a multimillionaire, but what if you had some money that could actually enable you to do the things that not only you want to do, but actually maybe make the difference that you want to do? Anyway, I could go on a long tangent with this, but my point at the beginning is that anyone
Yeah.
watching would say to you, if you're stuck thinking, well, it's very easy for you guys because you've been positive for such a long time, I can promise you there were plenty of, even though I've always been a positive person, there were plenty of moments where I would get sick and I would beat myself up, and so you can change things, but you don't, like I said before about simplifying, you don't have to do it all at once. So just change a few things in your environment and you'll start to see the changes happen. You go, oh, well, maybe I can do this and maybe I can do that.
Yeah, beautiful insight. Even that piece around like that positivity, we all have inner battles, and there are days like, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Flea and I had a really shit day because, we still do relief work and we're in schools and we see the systems that are broken while we're building our business. And I think we just had a really crap day and we just needed to cry and we just needed to talk to each other, and just be there. And when you surround yourself with people that have your back and change your environment and, change the people who you surround yourself with as well as the physical, it's amazing to see how quickly your nervous system can also bounce back. And and like yourself in your journey of like having those breakdown moments, those phoenix rising moments, seeking like-minded people that you aspire to inspire change and growth, just gets to quantumly elevate you in a, I think, a more speedier way. Even though there are moments that feel like maybe it's a bit more stagnant or slower, but in the quantum, this is the fastest way to growth when we can tap into the darkness, the shadows, embrace it, talk about it, feel it, and continue to love ourselves through that. Like that's the most important lesson of all.
Couldn't agree more. And on that part
And
about who you surround
it's that
yourself with.
cycle as well, isn't it? It's the
The
cycle
cycle.
as sorry, I was just the cycle as well that yeah.
Well, it is a cycle, and
Okay.
just to add to what you were saying, Marie, it's when I remember in 2021, I without giving you the long-winded story, I had put up some posts online, and let's just say it was during the COVID period of time, and I put up some posts about what I believed, and I had some kickback. In fact, one friend who knows me said, "You're gaslighting." And I went, "What?" I went, "Well, first of all, what's gaslighting?" I have to look that up. And then I was like, surely not. Like, that's not me. I'm not that type of person. Anyway, I looked over my post again and I realized that even though I didn't mean it, yes, I definitely was in the context of what she was saying. And I recognized that, there was such division, right? People who, just loosely, there's a whole plethora of different things, but let's just say people who wanted to get vaccinated, people who didn't want to, people who believed in the government, people who didn't believe in the government. And so I had my view, and and I was sharing things because someone in my circle was further along the journey, seemingly, and was sharing their view, which was similar to mine. And I thought, oh well, that's what they're doing, and so that's what I'll do. And not sheepishly, not just because, but I thought, oh yeah, I guess that's what we're doing. And then in that moment, two things happened. Number one, I said to myself, well, is this who you want to become? Like, do you want to become this person who is, you know, and of course there are people out there that we do need to be doing that sort of thing. But I thought, is this who you want to become? And I said, no. What do you want to stand for then? And I said, I want to stand for love. And so in that moment, the next post that I did, I said pretty much like this beautiful heart. I said to everyone, from now on, you won't actually see any of my views on what's going on in the world. I said, if you want to know, of course, please come and ask me, because I do have some views. However, I'm not going to be expressing them here. What I will be expressing is that I am actually here to support everyone. I don't care what your belief is. I love you regardless, and that is the truth. And so the other part to that process was I had some other high level people in my network in different countries, and I thought about a few people, about how they show up online and how they show up behind the scenes, and they were not congruent. There was no truth in it. And I thought, I'm no longer, like, if I'm suggesting this is who I have to become, I can't surround myself with people who aren't being truthful, first of all, to themselves and then to the rest of the world. And of course, we could say, well, the other friend I had was being truthful to what he believed. But it was also, if you don't believe this, well, you're an idiot. And when I put out my post about love, he essentially said to me, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And I said, yeah, I do. I stand for love. And he said, maybe not exactly these words, but he said, that's a load of bullshit. And I said, well, that's just what it is. And he decided to move on in that moment, which, part of me was, like when you lose something, part of me was like, oh, I'd actually done a lot of really positive things to help him. And it felt like that was a slap in the face. But the other side of me was like, this is really good, because I don't need people in my circle that are going to counteract why I actually am doing the things that I'm doing. So I hope that adds to what you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. These start. My internet is really bad. I can see the lag and the delay every time I talk, and I'm like, I'll just stop.
Well, as I said, I have plenty of stuff to say, but I'm mindful as well that I don't want to take over the show and share. I'm going to share as much as you want, but if you find that there's something that you want to pop in, or you want to talk about something different.
That piece about love, though, and what you stand for, and I think Flea and I are very much on that same page of, like, following your passion, following, how can we be more compassionate to each other who have different lenses, different religions, different stories. It's like everyone's story is their story. And it also isn't. And it's like, it's that polarity of, like, when we come back again to the heart of it all, we are all love and we are all that essence. And it's been interesting as well with that COVID chat situation, the things, and seeing what is still being unfolding from that, like the level of beauty that came from that, and people being really deeply self-reflective and more responsible, and knowing that there is another way, and also the deep trauma that's happened from that, and we had some beautiful guests from the US who were in our last global summit, who do beautiful work in unpacking through shamanic work, but also these deep trauma pieces around COVID, and those pieces that are coming through for people, for families, for the children. And I know, Flea, I know you want to say something to this. I think when you talk, it will be okay. It won't be too much of a lag.
You'll be fine.
Go.
It won't. No, it's not at the moment. I can see I'm completely paused. Yeah.
We can hear a little bit.
That's okay. Oh, that's all right. But yeah, Like, we do stand for something, and we got to stand for love. We got to, and we got to stand for humanity, and how do we treat each other, and joy. And even in this moment of lagging, I still see the joy in Lee's face. She's just like embracing all of the pieces there. But yeah, can we be more of ourselves, and more of like, opening our hearts, and just that authenticity in all of the pieces there, and also in the flaws that happen with tech.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and this is why I think for everyone, and this is why I think it comes down to being respectful, at least from my perspective. I think that everyone is at a different part or a different place in their journey. Some people aren't prepared or ready to, let's call it, wake up to the fact that, hey, there's more to life than just what you currently see. Because when you hear something like that, when you're not at a place where you're ready for it, it's like, what are you even saying? You're speaking a different language. I know when people used to say that to me, I think, who are these weirdos? What do you mean? I mean, I had a basis of, as I said before, of spirituality. So I knew that there was something more than just the physicality. But, like a lot of people, I was still stuck in my physicality. From 18, as I said, I got to live in the real world. Well, I lived in it, properly. And actually, I'm gonna take us on a quick detour onto a part that I think is really important, and it's not something I share a lot. And so, what I'm going to share here, I'm being guided to share it. So I'm going to share it. You talked into addiction before.
Mhm.
Now, I may not have necessarily gone to rehab. I may not have necessarily overdosed, but for many, many years, I was a recreational weekend drug user, and weekends might start on Friday
Mhm.
and end on Tuesday, and from a very young age as well,
Mhm.
mind you. So from the age of 15, I was working in nightclubs at 15, 16. And so, you know, I was and I know there's a lot of people out there like this, and hence why I'm highlighting it. The people who knew me might know that I was on drugs, not everyone, but the people who didn't know me, I was definitely not out there declaring. I mean, if you saw me raving in a nightclub, you'd probably think, hang on, this guy's doing something. But as an older man, or as an older, yeah, I was going to say an older boy, as an older man in my 30s, going into 40s, I was still randomly, not every weekend, but I was still randomly taking things because I needed to feel good, right? And there's a piece in this that I want people to really get. As you said, and I love that you said before, Flea, that addiction isn't necessarily about addiction, and I'm not putting down people who go to rehab or people that go to AA or any of that. Like, as I said before, I stand for love. Like, whatever you feel is going to work for you, do it. However, in my perspective or view from my own experience of being a drug user for a very long time, until, I can tell you, 31st of December 2018, actually, I've never shared this story. We've got time. Okay. 31st, New Year's Eve. A friend of mine had a penthouse in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane. And he said, come around, we're going to have a party. We're going to have some cocaine, blah, blah, blah. So I get the cocaine and I do a line of cocaine. And I almost cried. I was like, what am I doing? No. And you might think, hearing that, you might think, oh, what was it, bad cocaine? No. The point was, I knew I'd had this routine now, of writing gratitude every single day in my journal. I think at that time for about maybe 30 to 40 days. And so I had created this new habit that I loved, that I was starting, we talked about gratitude, I was starting to feel the changes really starting to occur. So in that moment, I was so angry at myself that I put myself in that situation, but also overjoyed at the same time, thinking, Eureka!
Mhm.
I'm onto it, right? And so the point was that, and I'm not saying it hasn't reared its head every now and again, but the point is, um, the positive attributes of what I do for myself are now so more overpowering. And of course, there was also a part of healing, childhood trauma and some other. I hadn't actually healed the breakdown, right? Hadn't done any healing, hadn't been to a counselor or anything. So it was good to actually get some closure and have some forgiveness for myself on that. But that initial moment was the starting point of me recognizing that anyone, if I've been doing drugs from the age of 15, at that time I was 43. No, I just turned 44. So, almost 30 years of taking drugs, and again, not heavily, but certainly quietly under the radar. And I thought, if I can
Yeah.
stop, that compulsion, because I'm so annoyed that I'm not going to potentially wake up early like I had been to do my gratitude. I thought, what a gift. It was such a gift. And so, going
Mm.
back to what you said before, Flea, if anyone can take that idea from what I did, and me being, vocal about the fact that I had done what I'd done for such a long time, that anyone, I promise you, anyone can change. But the point is, you've got to lock into something that moves you away from being that old version of yourself, and as you said, like breaking out of that pattern of the way you think you are. I had this vision of who I thought I was, like,
Mm.
and I'm sure you've heard this, and I'm sure you probably said it in the past. Well, you don't understand, Flea. Like, this is just who I am. Like, this is how I've been my whole life. This is my personality. And so I'd already discovered, guess what, Brett? You can change your personality. It's not actually, that's not who you are. You are not your
Mm.
personality. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And so, of course, it didn't all miraculously change in that moment, but
Mm.
the beautiful gift was that I started to see that, wow, like, by changing elements of who I was, and this was in the very early stages, right, before I'd even become the student properly with my coach. And so, oh no, I was a student with my coach during December. So it was in that early stage, and I've obviously going through that healing. And so I was doing some of that stuff. It's hard to think back that many years ago now. but anyone, I promise you, anyone. And people
Mm.
say, oh, I'm too old to change now. Like, I've been like this for such a long. No, I don't. And by the way, I've had clients in their 70s and
Perfect
80s
time to change.
that have changed, that have made changes. I promise you,
Mm.
I've got clients in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Am I paused? Am I frozen?
No, you're okay. Oh,
I'm
Flea's
okay.
back. Yeah.
And that
Okay.
that beautiful. No, yeah, it's me. It's just me.
It looks like
Okay.
I'm frozen on my screen. But anyway, yeah. So, I don't care what your excuse is, and that's all they are. And you would tell me, oh, it's a very valid excuse. And I'd agree with you. Yeah. Because that's what excuses are. They're usually quite valid. It's just whether you want to accept it. Like you said before, Flea, it's about making a choice. You have an ability to make a decision. And if you want to become a new version, or if you want to have new reality, or if you want to, live a different life, guess what? The you that you are today
Mm.
is absolutely not capable of achieving it. I don't care what you say, you can't, because you have to grow into
Yeah.
that new version. That's why success is a journey, it's not the destination.
Mm.
Mm, powerful, powerful share.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for just leaning into that vulnerability and sharing that part of yourself that, you said you haven't shared before. And
No, I haven't
um,
shared that story publicly. I've shared once about the fact that I took drugs for a very long time under the radar, and like as a quiet drug taker, because I saw an actress who became a friend of mine who's living over in the States, an Australian actress. She was talking about there's such a prolific amount of death happening from certain drugs over there. And the problem is that people don't know what they're getting, and so people want to go to a party and have fun, especially when you're young. Oh, I'm going to go and have fun. Oh, someone's got these drugs. I know that person should be all right.
Mm.
Well, maybe not. And so, so I thought, well, I'll start the process of opening up that part of me that I don't usually talk about. And for you guys, it came to me and I thought, okay,
Yeah, let's
I
go
guess
there.
I'm meant to share it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And it was a beautiful thread from, the earlier pieces.
It was in the card.
Yeah.
Oh, was
Yeah.
it? Which card?
Oh, was she frozen? Oh, please. Oh, yeah.
That was the devil card. So the temptations and the addiction.
You're coming through. You're coming through. Keep going.
It looks like, don't worry, it looks like I'm still frozen on my screen. So.
Oh, you're both not frozen for me, but our Flea's little reception thing is just glitching.
Oh, yeah.
But my goodness, it has been such a beautiful chat, and I have really loved the pieces around your journey, and like you said, you have to grow into it, and noticing these parts of ourselves that we get to choose and shift and change, and even the biggest visions and versions of ourselves that we dream of, knowing that there is another bigger version that we can't even fathom, but it's continuing to choose who we are becoming, which I think has been really powerful in this beautiful chat. And like you said, anything's possible, even when we think we've been set in stone. Do you want to? We can hear you now, Lee. Go for it.
I'm just like, everything is possible.
Everything is possible, but just to go back to the one piece that keeps rolling around in my head is, for anyone that's listening that thinks, oh, I've tried that before, I've had a go at that before. Well, have a go again. Like, if it's important to you, or if the change is important to you and you're having trouble doing it yourself, well, how about you get a coach or a mentor or a guide or an accountability buddy? Like, stop with the excuses. If something's important to you, find a way. That's what really happened to me in that breakthrough moment, in knowing that I was never going to self-sabotage again. Didn't mean I wasn't going to fail, but it meant I wasn't going to quit ever again. And so when I get excuses that pop up in my mind to why I think I can't do it, I say to myself, well, you can't accept that. No. So find a way, and if you can't find a way, ask for help. Asking for help, right? That, especially for men, if there's men watching, like, I know I was the classic never asking for help. I would always try and do it myself. I would, if you said, oh, can I? No, I'm good. No, I'll figure it out. No, I don't care if you're male or female or any other gender. Like, honestly, that is one of the best things that any of us can do. If you're stuck, the best thing you can do is put your hand up and say, I don't know if you can help, but this is what's going on. They might not be able to help, but guess what? They go, well, I don't know, but maybe you'll set off a chain of events, or the reaction will be that you will get the help and you'll get the answer.
Yeah. And if you don't ask, you don't know. You don't know what's
If you
possible.
don't ask, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
That's it. And there's a lot of courage in asking too, which, we spoke about courage and bravery earlier today too. So it has been beautifully, courageously vulnerable of you to share these parts of yourself that we deeply appreciate. And I Flea is frozen on my end again, but hopefully she'll tune in. But Brett, how can people connect with you if they've listened in and they're like, I want to chat with Brett and find out more about him? How can they find you?
Well, to be clear, I'm moving more into the corporate wellness part of global change. And so I don't do a lot of one-to-one work, but by all means, if anyone does feel like there's something I can do to help them, I would say the easiest way to get a hold of me is on social media. So if you go to either on Facebook or Instagram, it's just at the Brett Scott, both with double T, Brett. So at the Brett Scott. At the Brett Scott. So if you go on there, send me a DM. I respond to anyone that sends me a message. I'll respond unless you say, "Hey, do you want to learn how to get 10 to 15 new leads in the next 30 days?" If you send me that, I probably won't respond.
No, no one likes those.
Uh,
Are you back? Oh, Flea's
a little
back.
bit.
Any final thoughts, beautiful Flea?
Oh, I actually
We
have
can hear you.
service for about 5 seconds.
Okay.
Just
No.
thank you, so much gratitude. Yeah, it's actually working for 5 seconds. I hope I got your link right down the bottom there on the screen. So for those people that get to hear, thank you.
That's it.
Amazing.
Oh, there's no .com. Although my website is brettdscott.com. So if you go to brettdscott.com, that is my website. Otherwise, it is just at the Brett Scott, no .com.
We've
That's on
tagged
Facebook
you.
or Instagram.
Yeah, we've tagged you on Instagram already and on Facebook.
Oh, cool.
So amazing. And thank you so much, Brett, for your time. And we're looking forward to more connections in the future. And I love how we get to weave with amazing people. And folks, if you've stuck with us for this long, there are more amazing people coming up in the next few weeks. New guests, old guests. And we also have a beautiful global summit coming up in August. So if you have loved listening into these amazing everyday leaders and feel inspired to be courageous and want to share your story of transformation, of awakening, of stepping into your superhero powers, come and chat with us because on the 10th to the 14th of August, we have our beautiful global summit, turnkey transformations, and these turnkey pivotal moments where we get to awaken more deeply into these aha moments, these phoenix rising moments, into the gifts of remembrance. And it is extremely woo woo, spiritual, and scientific and quantum all at the same time. And come and join us if you're interested. And we also have some beautiful practical summits for all the mums out there that may be listening in October. And also, I can't even talk at this time of the evening. Also, a beautiful youth empowerment summit coming up in November. You know, I feel these parts of our journeys, sharing them openly with our young people, our young teenagers, our young entrepreneurs, and the future leaders of the world who are yearning for people like us to lead the way. Like, let's have conversations with them. Let's hear what they want. Let's open up dialogue. So, Flea and I are very excited with Awæcnian Academy to have 3 more summits. Totally different vibes, but also about humanity and growth and growing into, you know, the best versions of ourselves. Flea, any final thoughts?
Yes, no,
No? Slight
maybe.
delay? I think there's a delay. No. Beautiful. We're just going to leave you there and say goodbye, everybody, and come and connect with us. Bye, everybody. Thanks again, Brett.
Thank you. Bye, ladies.